Uh, Let me introduce quickly my colleagues who are going to bail me out. Prashant Reddy from Dreyfus, Amrendra, CEO ADM India, and Reddy Garu from TS Fed. Please do join us. Sougata is, I just wanted to call you later, especially. No, please come. Okay, so immediately after lunch, we will try to make it as engaging as possible and as enriching. And instead of discussing the normal, already known things, I think we want to elevate this panel discussion to really into the thought-provoking, longer-term changes that we can get into the industry type of a thing, because I think I just don't want to lose out on the experience, rich experience that everybody had. Quickly, for basic things, I think with or without National Mission on Edible Oils, in two crops we had a very good growth. We had about 47% growth in mustard seed. We had a very good growth of 20-25% of growth in soybeans. So this year we don't have to import meal. We are net surplus meal, which was otherwise a chaotic situation last year. So talking about self-sufficiency, we need to understand that often spoken issues that we need to increase productivity, that the capacity utilization is a problem. If at all we need to grow, what is the right policy that we need to balance between consumer, farmer and the industry? What is the right ecosystem to have self-sufficiency, drive, have been discussed at various points in time. As we saw in the last 2 years, very high prices of edible oil or very low prices of edible oil attract attention from everybody, from every government. We saw that it attracted attention by the Indonesian government. It attracted attention in developed countries also, because edible oil is such a big ticket item in the thali, that the prices will actually impact not only the consumer but the policy makers, the industry, the farmers. It is a very, very interconnected sector. On it also depends allied sector by way of poultry, the aquaculture. So that is the size of the business, a massive 2.5 lakh crore industry. To start with, I just want to start off a question to Amrendra. How do you see, being a big crusher in India yourself and seen all this, what are your thoughts on key challenges facing our industry, and what would be the key takeaways? Let's put it like something you can do in the short term, something you need to do in the long term. What would be the solution that you can think of?
Right, sir. So first of all, thanks for inviting me on this panel, and good afternoon, everyone. So talking about our experience, I think one of the basic issue with the domestic crusher phase is the consistency of the supplies. So we are very heavily dependent on, a lot of oil seeds is dependent on the rain fed area. So if the rains are not good, then the supplies are disturbed. And then also the consistency on the quality and availability. Third thing is that Indian oil seeds are price-wise very highly priced. So when we talk about oil seeds, I think most of the time the conversation is about oil. What we forget is that the other part of the oil seeds is oil meal. And if we are crushing hard, then we are producing a lot of meal, be it soya meal, be it rapeseed meal, be it other type of meals. So we really need to have a policy in place where we incentivize this meal. And that can be done via export. We know that India at one point of time has been a big exporter of soybean meal, and that was bringing a good amount of foreign exchange in the country, which was ultimately benefiting the whole supply chain. That's how we saw the soybean cultivation going up. Last year, we saw a huge amount of rapeseed meal exports. which definitely benefited the industry and the farmers. If you look at last year, the farmer realizations on the rapeseed mustard crop was very high. So if the policies are linked more closer to what the market wants, I think the farmers will respond in that way. And that's what exactly, sir, you said that we have seen growth in the oilseeds plantings. Because the prices are high, the farmer economics were working in their favor, and hence the farmers were happy to increase the cultivation of oilseeds. So the markets are doing their job to incentivizing farmers to grow more and benefit from that. Uh, what I see what is needed for the industry is a more say a long-term, well thought of policy. So first of all, where we struggle is actually the productivity. I mean, a lot of talk goes on, but where we are missing is what is the research and development we have done in oilseeds over the last 10 years. The amount of new varieties that has been introduced, that has been very less. So we need to really integrate agriculture universities, ICAR, the companies from the corporate sector, and work out a plan that, okay, what we need, what we want to grow, how we can have a more climate smart seed technology, where we all know that the climate is going to play its part, and we can have the drought resistant variety, we can have high yielding variety. Rather, we need to think of that how we can increase the oil content in the crop, because India is still, I mean, we are dependent on export of oil meals. So if our oil seeds are high oil bearing, then we can utilize that oil in our domestic usage. So like soybean, normally oil we are talking about 18%. Now if we can develop it to 20 to 21%, then that extra 3% of oil can meet our domestic requirements. Similarly, there could be an upside of on the oil content of mustard seed, or say for that matter sunflower seed. So if we are investing in the right amount of technology, if we are investing in R&D on the oil seeds development, I think we can surely have a good amount of headway. Second thing which I think what we really need to do is consistency in the policy. I mean, our industry continues to suffer from every time if the prices are too high, then we are talking about government lowering the import duty. If the prices are low, then we are talking about increasing the import duty. I think the whole slab duty formula, which IVPA has suggested, recommended, and told at different platforms, I think that is what we need. Like today, the prices of oils have fallen and everyone is talking about we need import duty. And that is what, if we have the formula, then it will automatically click in. And that's what gives the long-term clarity for anyone who is playing in this industry. The importers can plan their purchase. The domestic crushers know that what is going to happen if this value of oil comes. So I think from that perspective, it will help the domestic industry a lot, and ultimately the farmers. And then third thing, I think there needs to be support that needs to be given on the export side. If directly not from the subsidy side, maybe some support on the transportation, some support from the processing. So if these areas are catered to, I think we can first of all grow more oilseeds in the country. And from the oilseed side, it's not just about growing, it's also about utilization or crushing those oilseeds in the country. So if we have the right policy on the oil duty, the right policy on the meal exports, then it can incentivize the crushing in the country and make more domestic oil available, meeting the growing requirement of the country. So that is what I have, sir.
Thanks a lot, Amrendra. I think I will do it like a Antakshari, okay? So I'll just pick up the last leg of so many suggestions that Amrendra has given, very practically being a crusher in Maharashtra for soybeans, sun seeds, so a lot of rich experience. So you came to the conclusion about the policy front, how the policy can actually make this happen smoother and better, taking into consideration all the stakeholders, whether it is on export side or on import side, what policy is good. Before I ask Prashant Reddy for this question, I just want to say practically, in front of you, you have the same situation today, mustard seed. You have a very good crop, you have a very good carry-in, but the prices are below MSP. So it is caught in a little bit of a tangle towards Atmanirbharta. You have produced seed, but it is with the farmer, and farmer does not want to sell because it is below MSP. The crusher is not able to buy because the oil and cake is not giving a remuneration. So the crushing industry is today waiting for something to happen so that the seeds can smoothly get crushed. This is again a very important ground level policy related issue. So how do you see all this?
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Let me handle this question in three frames, basically. If you look at it from the production constraints and the industry constraints or the processing constraints and the risk management constraints that we face as an industry. Production constraints, if you look about right from the average yields that we have, so that is one of the major yields. Initially, we were, at national average yield is less than a ton in oil seeds, which actually has to significantly grow up. So that is one area from the policy level discussions that happens is increase in the varietals and other areas of focus needs to be worked on. Second factor from the production constraints is the agroclimatic conditions these days. We are talking about rainfall predictions. Things I think have changed globally and as well as in India as well. Earlier we probably used to call up people in mandis to ask, okay, barish hua hai, nahi hua hai. Today we need to know what is the kind of amount of rainfall that has accumulated in the crop and what is the amount of rainfall that is actually needed for the crop, which is throughout the stages. It's about growing stages and then flowering stages, reproductive stages of the crop and at harvest. So if we can quantify this, then we definitely can estimate the kind of yield losses or yield gains that might happen very well in advance, which would definitely give a clear picture of the government of exact crop numbers and exact production scenarios that happen in the crops. Reasons for this was because the production numbers changing very significantly, a lot of deviations over the crop time period. So these are the some of production constraints, and from the marketing perspective on the production side, better access, better crushers. We have seen a lot of FPOs and aggregation models that are coming up recently. That is one area I think which is really a lot of tremendous scope on the production side, which would not only help every farmer side on the to address these production constraints and a little bit to the marketing constraint. On the processing constraint, there are plenty of constraints. If we talk about crush as an industry, we have excess crush capacity, underutilized. Probably that is one of the major concerns as industry we have, 35 to 40% of crush, be it oil refining capacity utilizations. So these are the one, if the supply gaps are met on the domestic front, then the processing constraints can also be eliminated. Other processing constraints that we have would be, like the duty changes. Today, market scenarios completely changed in the last decade, basically. It's not about only the demand and supply things in India, but it's more macro level that those are influencing, the margins in India, the refining capacities in India, etc. So to address that, I think, the duty slab system that industry has proposed, I think these are the changes that we need to get into the processing constraints. Last is the risk management, which is very efficient in scenarios like this. Like for this season, as risk management, because if you see the global volatility, that has changed a lot. It's influenced by macros, it's influenced by Ukraine, Russia, it's influenced by Chinese demand, it's influenced by the global political scenarios in US, etc. So all this is creating huge volatility, which creates, which we would need a better risk management platform in terms of either futures or options or a forward book, basically. So these are the constraints, that we as India should, we as the participant should get those constraints to address from the policy level, a consistent decision on tariffs, exports and export slabs and the risk management. Then these are the solutions that I propose to the question you have. Thank you.
Yeah, but if I were to ask you, what is the right proportion of import versus domestic that it should be.
Right.
And second question is that in terms of priorities, what would those priorities be and in which geographies, which oil seeds, what should be the focus area? Suppose you are writing to National Mission on Oil Seed,
Right.
that one-page note on the on National Mission on Oil Seeds, that this is what you should do. What would that be?
Okay. Yeah. So ideally today, the ratio, if we talk about, is 60 to 70% is 60 to 70% dependency on import of oils, and 30% is like domestic production of oils. For this ratio to change to like, you know, 0 or maybe 30-70, otherwise, there will be different options that might be evaluated, and like one of the options I would say is, you know, 3 or 4 things that I would put forward for this. One is utilization of rice fallow lands is one of the solutions to this. I think we have seen a lot of areas identified in the past as well, and yet to be more work needs to be done on this. So how much of that land is converted to the, you know, the fallow lands after the rice crop needs to be utilized in oil seeds. A lot of committees in the past have, I think, identified rice fallow lands to the hectares of approximately 2 million hectares as well, majorly in Chhattisgarh and some other states. So that is one area which is a real potential. Second is the palm focus, with the kind of focus that Telangana government have or many other governments have. So we not probably completely nullify the effect on the domestic production completely, but at least, you know, there is a scope of addition of a few million tons of palm in the coming next 5 to 10 years. GM is a very sensitive topic overall. We have at least seen like, you know, some of the trials and the recent discussions on GM scenarios in India. That is one thing the government should evaluate if it is the right balance between farmer, consumer, and industry, and across India. So these are all the 3 things that I would say as a combination would, in addition to this, you know, intercrop situations where some of the crops like sesame and other things can be encouraged, and other part. So these are the 3 or 4 parts which probably would accumulate a lot of domestic production to the country.
Okay, I'll continue the chain again, like I promised. Let's go to palm oil and technology. GM, of course, is a different subject, but within oil palm, there is a lot of issues in terms of sapling, the technology, the long gestation to shorter duration crops, improving the payback period in the farm incomes. So that will put me right across to Sougata in terms of oil palm and experience and growth and the current status of oil palm in the country with reference, and also specifically where we are sitting. So how do you see the mission, and is let's say 2 million tons or upwards of 2 million tons possible? If so, by when?
Thank you, sir. First of all, giving the opportunity. Obviously, palm is a subject for tomorrow, not for today, because in the pie, palm hardly counts anything as far as domestic production is concerned. But I'm very happy that exactly about 18 months back, the new mission has been launched. And definitely there is a lot of momentum. This is a year we just finished. According to me, 2 particular state, obviously Telangana is number 1. Almost officially they must have added 30,000 hectares. Andhra, who always used to be number 1, is now number 2. Must have added about 16,000 hectares. And together it should be a year where we have added 60,000 hectares. Coming back to the mission we had, what we have decided, promised, committed internally is by 26-27, we should be adding 6.5 lakh hectares. According to me, we are running a year late, probably by 27-28. The kind of momentum I see building up, we are going to cross 1 lakh hectare this year. Current year we are running. and probably we are going to take over a slightly higher run rate from a year after. That is going to take us somewhere around 6 lakh hectare in 5 years. The larger aspect, the larger vision is now 2030, which is about covering 16 lakh hectare from current 3.5, which will take another 3 years from 27-28. So the biggest problem why we are this year only able to achieve 60,000 hectare, I am sure that another 20-30,000 hectare could have been a very easy thing, particularly looking into the oil prices. But no company had enough sapling, and that's exactly the crisis you have mentioned about. So Atmanirbhar Bharat or Atmanirbhar edible oil nation, particularly relying on oil palm, we are totally dependent on sapling from outside. So we have currently experiencing 30 million sprouts per year. Domestically, we are not even producing 2 million. So that's the situation. So as a industry player, we have taken a lead, and we think that it is time that all responsible companies have to come forward for, although it's a long haul, it is going to take 5 to 7 years time, but I sincerely feel that we should start, and that journey starting. I was speaking to Madam, even Telangana government has decided to take over a seed garden. When we commit about seed garden, we have to be very, very careful that we give a right product to our farmer, because a farmer, if they face difficulty after 3-4 years, then that's going to be a big setback for this mission. So I think why it is important in India, the seed which we are procuring from Southeast Asia, mostly, and some Central America, these are the seeds not meant for India. Indian oil palm story is very different. We have to create our own oil palm story here. And for that, we definitely need a breeding program dedicated to Indian oil palm, where we build varieties which can sustain 1000 mm rain, dry spell, irrigated conditions, 5-6 months of relatively almost very dry, in fact 10-15% humidity, but still match 3.5 to 4 ton oil per hectare. That is what will get us to somewhat about 3 million ton by 2030 if we achieve 10 lakh hectare. So that's definitely a focus. I think the second thing which India, it's not that we are not doing good areas in the past, but we had seen serious setback because a bad year in terms of oil prices, we have seen significant uprooting. So on official record, we are at 3.5 lakh hectare, but we are officially, whatever it may be, it is not definitely more than 2.5 lakhs. So this kind of story we don't want. That is why we require strong policy intervention for gestation period, 3 to 4 years. Obviously, we are working on varieties which can get us income for the farmers in the end of third year by 36 months. But the first 3 years itself, which when a farmer requires 3 to 4 lakh rupees of expenditure fund, which he can manage his 1 hectare garden, the assistance which is provided is not enough. So therefore, the pure requirement of intercropping, so that that kind of a cash flow can be generated to the farmer, we industry has to come forward how we can support financially for first 3 years. And if the farmer overcome this, I think the policy is, you must be aware of that the viability price has been revised to 13,346 rupees per hectare, per ton, which according to us, even a 15 ton of per hectare of yield takes him to about 2 lakh rupees, which is a very decent income looking into a farmer, current any oilseed farmer or oil crop producing farmer in this country. So I think we together, government and company, have to come forward to make sure all area we are adding, we should experience minimum uprooting and to get to our promise by 3 million ton by 2030. That's all.
Okay, thank you for that comprehensive note on oil palm. And of course, there are some constraints of saplings, but I think eventually we'll find willing suppliers, and that's where the local institutes will have to play a big role. So that takes me to Surender Reddy Garu. For your experience and how deeply have you studied such an important area of a strategic importance? I think Telangana has got into similar situation like at the nation level we are in terms of wheat and rice, the high water needing oil seeds. So we need a acreage shift to oil seeds. And similarly in Telangana, also there is due to huge explosion in the irrigation facilities, thanks to the development, there is a lot of rice production. But then, uh, while you want to target producing the right variety of rice, which is probably exportable, the other easy option, low-hanging fruit, is definitely to get into oil palm in a big way. And so, how do you describe this whole oil palm from Telangana point?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. uh, Mr. Desai has, I would like to say, hit the nail on the head. What the government of Telangana was planning was just mentioned by him. If I go back a decade, the state of Telangana, except for 2 districts, maybe Warangal and Khammam, the rest of the state was almost a dry state, mostly dependent on rainfall. With the advent of these new irrigation projects and luckily since the last 1 decade we have had good rains, there has been a substantial increase in the levels of groundwater. And for that reason, I think Telangana is the most apt area for oil palm, because unlike in the southeast, here we have to irrigate the plantation, and more so during summers. Now, why the government has been planning to shift farmers from paddy to oil palm? There are a variety of reasons. A major is economic reason, right? The government has to spend on the water, then the power, then the fertilizers, and then ultimately buying it back from the farmers. And we are left with the huge surplus, which we have to again sell it to the government of India. So realizing this issue, and also the issue of shortage of oils, and then what would be the right crop for diversion, which gives a good income to the farmers, so we zeroed on the oil palm plantation. So what has been our approach towards the oil palm plantation? So we have like first identified farmers with good irrigation conditions, and then we have been into paddy cultivations, and then we have taken up huge awareness programs in these areas to shift farmers from paddy. But the work is not so easy, being a new crop and not an attractive one, because it has got a long gestation. Farmers are hesitating a lot, and above all that, the negativity about this plantation. So even educated classes, they raise queries with me about the benefits of oil palm. So with so many doubts, we are finding it difficult, but still during last year, Telangana has achieved almost 82,000 acres. This year, because of the awareness created last year, definitely I think we'll double the area under oil palm. And to give an impetus to the program, what we initially did was create a lot of pilot projects in various districts. So these pilots have started paying off. So they have become demonstration models for farmers. Farmers are seeing the pilot farmers reaping some benefits from these plantations, and definitely there's going to be a good response toward these oil palm plantations. So I think this will be a consistent approach of the government of achieving its target of 20 lakh acres in the next 5 years. It's a lofty target, but still the entire machinery in the state is working at it.
Thank you. And, we got 10 minutes, but I want to maximize utility of these 10 minutes. So I will ask only one question to both the panelists, Amrendra and Prashant. Let me ask the other way. We often talk about crop incentive money to be given, okay, from mustard. You know, wheat farmers should convert to mustard. Must be happening a little bit for sure. And also for high oil yielding varieties, because what we need is oil clearly and not meal, groundnut, sunflower seeds. I think long back we were here, my boss from ITC is there, Pradeep Chaudhary. We were procuring sunflower seeds from everywhere, all over for Sundrop brand. We used to buy from Bihar, UP, North, today, zero. So, there are these thought processes that these are the oil seeds in which you need to really put emphasis and redo it. A, why it is not happening? And B, is that the right approach to things? What is the cost of not doing anything? What is the cost of not achieving self-sufficiency? Okay, if you do nothing and just say that, okay, we want to produce only the one which we are comfortable with, oil seeds will keep importing either from Malaysia or Indonesia or Thailand or Latin America or Ukraine or Russia. There are many countries who are producing for India. And with every kilo of consumption, which is most likely, you would require 1.4 million tons of oil. So multiply that into the next few years, it would look like the whole world will have to produce for India. So thinking very forward, and also the vulnerability of supply, okay? Suddenly one country will say, okay, I don't want to give you crude oil, I want to give only refined products, or we have other markets to supply, or there could be a supply chain disruptions, the ones like that we have seen. These are all the vulnerabilities, these are the opportunities, this is the cost of not doing it. So covering all that, complexity, since we are simple people, can't understand so many dynamic situation, you have to think of all that and give it in a tablet form, like a simple form of a solution, okay? That's what you should do. So tell us, what is the cost of not achieving self-sufficiency or going in that direction? Amrendra.
So, I think self-sufficiency, I mean, as a target is a very good goal, but we know that, I mean, achieving it is very difficult. So let's be practical on that. And also, I think that in a resource deficit country like India, we should not pursue goals like to become self-sufficient in oil. And I agree that let's try to build up to a capacity where we are reducing. So we should agree that, okay, we want to reduce our import dependency. That is something which we all definitely want. But we also don't want to produce oil at such a high price where consumers will be affected, right? And at the end of the day, what will happen is that if the industry is not running, if the consumer is not buying the oil at the high prices, ultimately your farmers are suffering. So let's not have those policies which are ultimately boomerang and affecting the farmers and consumers and everyone in the value chain. So the idea should be that, okay, today if we are having an import dependency of 70%, let's have a 10-year vision where we reduce it to say 60% or 15 years to 50%, and then we balance it out. Secondly, I also feel this whole logic of convincing the farmers of Punjab and Haryana to stop growing wheat and rice. I mean, why would they? Their returns are much better. And it's not just about production, like, okay, you tell the farmer that you stop growing this and start growing this. We'll have to create an ecosystem for the farmer. There has to be someone who is supplying seed, there has to be someone who tells them that how to grow it, and then there has to be someone who buys that produce. The farmer cannot operate or produce a crop in an isolation, and then we think that, okay, they have been doing this for 100 years, and then next year they'll start planting just oil seeds. I mean, that is also not happening. I think what policymakers need to do is identify that what farmer wants. If you look at soybeans, Indian government has not done anything much on soybeans apart than producing, like making the varieties available. It's the market which has done, it's the ease of growing soybeans which have attracted the farmers. MP used to be one of the chief producer of soybeans. If you look at how the growth in Maharashtra has been, it has been tremendous. And it is telling us that somewhere the farmers want to grow that crop. Why? Because it's easier to grow, the cost of cultivation is less, the crop can survive even if it doesn't rain for 15 or 20 days, the crop can survive even if it rains for 7 days. So the farmers are much better in growing crops. I mean, if you look at the mix of the crops which are developing in the country, farmers like to grow chickpeas, farmers like to grow soybeans, they like to grow wheat and rice. So that is how the policy framework also needs to evolve, and that is where we need to invest. So I personally feel that sunflower, okay, it has a very high oil content, but it's a difficult crop to grow. The sunflower, I mean, it requires a lot of nutrients to grow. So why to pursue that crop which requires a lot of investment from the government, from the farmers, grow some easy crops. So why not let's increase the oil content in soybeans? So this is what my outlook is. And secondly, I think the need of the hour is to make markets act more freely, so that let the market decide that what farmer wants to grow. Wherever if you see that government has, most of the time if the government has intervened, it has also resulted in a negative thing, that the farmers continue to grow something too much and then the market falls. So I am a firm believer on open markets and free markets, and let economics and market to decide what farmers want to do, rather than too much of policy intervention. So that is what I suggest.
Free world, free economy, Prashant?
Yeah.
Same
For me,
question.
yeah, it's two things. One is growing self-sufficiency in terms of increase, at least dependency, reducing the import dependency will be very critical, because for us, it's more about food. Because, and if you look up at the world scenarios that are changing, we are 70% import dependent, and the world is also talking about biofuels, et cetera, et cetera. So that is one constraint that will creates an alarm for us as well, to produce more or to increase yields and to at least secure the availability. Other commodities are different, but oils is like, the population is growing, everything is going. That is where I see one area where we can do. Second point is we have a good area. If you talk about soybean, like 10 million hectares, mustard 8 to 10 million hectares, but our yields are less. So there is a potential where we can definitely increase. Is it because of defragmentation or because of the lack of agronomic practices or other stuff? But definitely there is a potential. We have seen some of the areas where the concentration has done, the yields have been better. And if you talk about like 1990 onwards for soybean, 1990 to 2000, for example, the CAGR after this technological mission and other things on the soybean side was more than 10%. And if you talk about from 1990 till today, the CAGR is like 5% just on the soybean production. And in between, like last decade, we have seen like a lot of disruptions in the climatic factors, where our soybean productions are in a couple of years, a few years, have dropped down drastically as well. So all these situations, considering all these situations, we have the potential. We can reduce the dependency, not to the zero probably, but yeah, I think we should be working on this. Yeah.
Thank you. Before I close, is there anybody in this esteemed audience who has got a compelling reason to make a comment? Don't ask us questions, but you want to say something that's so important that you feel like saying it in 2 minutes? Anybody?
I think you wanted to say
Someone.
Yeah, here.
Hello everybody. As a farmer, just I want to understand why we are not focusing on the local production and the local processing. We are all talking about imports, right? So as a intellectual individuals, why don't we think about village as a unit, and how can we build a self-sufficient village? The sum of all villages will be our nation, right? Thank you.
Yeah, Very important point, I think. During self-sufficiency, definitely, one thing that we are saying is state level, oil level planning required. Otherwise, nothing is going to happen. And you're very right that it has to go back to the village level, because I am pretty sure all of us will agree that to make a acreage shift from the farmer to happen, it has to be on the ground. I mean, he has got a small piece of land, which is his asset. You are trying to tell him, you do it this way. It's not easy, so I think it has to be a bottoms-up approach. I fully agree that it has to be a village, district, state, oil seed level planning, given our resources. At the end of the day, it's a resource. A very important point. From that, I thank everybody for your valuable. Yeah, just in 1 minute.
Just like to
Yes.
make a point. We have got diverse oils which people in India use. I think we are good with groundnut. We are good with mustard. We are good with rice bran. So that leaves us with palm oil, sunflower and soya. So palm oil has got a perfect arrangement.
Okay.
We have got the farmers, they are with the industry, they don't leave the industry. And the only issue in that is expanding the area, being a new crop, and the hope generated by the government, I think it will take off and will achieve a large measure of success. But because we have got preferences, there are parts of India which only depend on soya oil or even sunflower oil. I think if that model again is adopted by those industries, we can achieve some success in reducing the import of soya and sunflower also.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, just one point before we are time out.
Yeah, thank you for giving the opportunity. I'm Dr. Nirja Prabhakar, Vice Chancellor of Konda Lakshman Telangana State Horticulture University. In the panel discussion is it's well pointed out, and as said by the panel members, one thing that the farmers has to be educated about the technology that to be taken up to the farm about the cultivation of oil palm. Because of the simple mistakes may lead to the large loss. So that is the one thing. And especially the availability of water is there, but the 24/7 into 30 to 12. So that is a requirement is that has to be taken care well by the farmer, which will have huge impact in the coming, so the flowering and the fruiting stage.
Okay.
So these education has to be enlightened to the farmers, and apart from that, being a long pre-bearing period, what you will call a gestation period. So how the farmers they had to be milled money from by doing the intercropping, the high value crops. That is the one. So from our university side, yes, we are ready to give our technologies.
Excellent.
That's it.
Excellent. Thank you. And yeah, thanks to all my colleagues here. You can, thanks for all your valuable suggestions. We'll close this panel.